Chapter 1. The Explosion of Forms. The HR printer screamed like a dying animal. Paper spilled onto the floor in a white waterfall. Employees gathered around, some laughing, some filming with their phones. On top of the pile was Ethan's latest request form, H17, filled out with deadly precision. Request: bathroom break. Estimated duration: 3 minutes. Justification: hydration cycle requires disposal. The HR intern, drowning in paper, whispered, "Please make it stop." It didn't stop. By noon, the floor was buried under hundreds of forms, requests for bathroom trips, water refills, stretching, sneezes, one even for existential sighing. The HR director, Miss Collins, stormed in, heels clicking, face red. "This is mockery. The system is not a joke." Ethan sat calmly at his desk, sipping coffee. He typed into Slack, "Yes, boss, exactly." Within seconds, reactions flooded in. 2 passed. What HR thought would bring order had unleashed chaos. Flashback, the announcement. Just 2 days earlier, Collins had stood proudly at the Monday all-hands. From now on, all breaks must be logged through Form H17. Bathroom, water, everything. Remote work requests require 2 weeks' notice. This will ensure discipline and accountability. Polita applause, blank stares. Ethan smirked. Every break logged? You really want to see what that looks like? The creed. Ethan's philosophy was simple. Never fight stupidity head-on. Just obey it. Stupidity exposes itself. And now, the stupidity was printing itself in black ink, page after page, for everyone to see. Chapter 2. The Avalanche. By Tuesday morning, the entire company had joined the game. The form flood. At 9:01 a.m. sharp, the HR inbox pinged. 1 form, then 2, then 50. Request: stand up and stretch. Duration: 45 seconds. Request: drink water. Duration: 2 minutes. Justification: human biology. Request: deep sigh of frustration. Duration: 10 seconds. By 10 a.m., the inbox hit 600 requests. The HR system slowed, groaned, then froze. Collins stormed into the HR bullpen. "Process them manually," she barked. Interns drowned in paper, eyes wide. One whispered, "There are more forms than emails in my Gmail." Employees unite. Meanwhile, the employees were having the time of their lives. Slack was filled with screenshots. Bridget posted her approved form for bathroom break, 2 minute. Caption: "I feel so validated." Owen filed a request for tie shoelaces, 1 minute, and proudly showed HR's stamped approval. Maya submitted, request: cry quietly in restroom. Duration: 6 minutes. HR, overwhelmed, approved without reading. The office erupted in laughter. Compliance had turned into satire. The domino effect. By lunchtime, productivity had collapsed. Developers were in HR lines instead of at their desks. Designers debated how many forms were needed for a coffee refill. Sales reps joked about submitting requests for blink count per hour. The cafeteria echoed with laughter as employees compared absurd approvals like baseball cards. Collins, however, still stood firm. "This shows discipline. If you're wasting time filling forms, at least it's documented." Her words only fueled the fire. By 2 p.m., someone had printed a giant poster. "All hail Form H17. It hung above the copier like a corporate flag. The cracks in the system. That evening, the CFO opened his email and found a 200-page report generated from HR logs. He skimmed the absurd entries, stared at wall, coughed twice, waited for printer to stop screaming, and felt his blood pressure rise. He forwarded the file to Collins with a single subject line. "Is this a joke?" Collins replied without irony. "Number, this is accountability." Ethan smirked. At his desk, Ethan closed his laptop and sipped his coffee. The office buzzed around him like a carnival. He hadn't raised his voice once. He hadn't broken a single rule. He just complied. And compliance was enough to turn the company upside down. He typed 1 line into Slack. "Yes, boss. Exactly." The message racked up 200 reactions in under a minute. Chapter 3. The Client Shock. Wednesday afternoon, the first real bomb dropped. The wrong file. Horizon Bank, one of the company's largest clients, had asked for a progress report. The project manager, exhausted and juggling hundreds of ridiculous HR forms of his own, accidentally attached the wrong file to the email. Instead of the sleek status update, the client received a raw HR export, 200 pages of approved forms. On page 37, a line read, "Request, sneeze. Duration, 15 seconds. Justification, allergens in office." On page 102, "Request, existential sigh. Duration, 1 minute. Justification, Mondays." On page 156, "Request, debate if pineapple belongs on pizza. Duration, 20 minutes. Approved." The client's fury. The reply came within the hour. Short, nuclear. "We are paying $300 hour for this?" The email CC'd the CFO, CEO, and every executive in sight. The executive storm. By 4 p.m., the boardroom was in chaos. CFO's voice echoed like thunder. "Collins, explain why our clients are reading about sneezes and pizza debates." Miss Collins held her ground, sweat beading at her temples. "This is transparency, accountability, every minute tracked." The CEO slammed his fist on the table. "Transparency is not comedy. Our client thinks we're a circus." No one said it out loud, but everyone thought it, because we are. Back on the floor. Meanwhile, the employees were still laughing. Screens lit up with memes. Screenshots of approved bathroom break forms, captioned "VIP access granted." Ethan leaned back, coffee in hand, smirk spreading. He hadn't planned for the client to see it, but chaos had a way of finding cracks. His Slack status read, "Working," very transparently. The fallout begins. By evening, the HR inbox was locked. Executives ordered a temporary suspension of the policy. Collins, red-faced, promised it was only pause for review. But the damage was done. Clients had seen, executives had panicked, employees smelled victory. And Ethan, he just kept sipping his coffee, whispering his creed under his breath. Never fight stupidity head-on. Just obey it. Stupidity exposes itself. Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. Thursday morning, the email came from the CEO himself. Subject: Mandatory all hands. 10 a.m. Attendance required. The entire company groaned. Mandatory meetings meant one thing: someone was in trouble. The all hands begins. At exactly 10 o'clock, hundreds of employees packed into the main conference hall. The air was thick with curiosity and caffeine. A massive projector lit up the room. On the screen was the dreaded title, Policy Compliance, a Company Review. Miss Collins stood at the podium, her usual self-confidence frayed at the edges. "Our new policy has revealed inefficiencies we never realized. For example, one employee logged existential sigh, 1 minute. That is real time wasted." The crowd chuckled. Collins pressed on, sweat shining under the lights. Another log, argued about pineapple on pizza, 20 minutes. "This is why productivity is suffering. This is why we need discipline." Laughter erupted louder this time. The employees weren't laughing at themselves. They were laughing at her. Ethan's move. In the back row, Ethan raised his hand, calm, steady, coffee cup in his other hand. "Miss Collins, with respect, those logs were approved by HR, correct?" Collins blinked. "Well, yes, but..." "So the system isn't exposing inefficiencies of workers, it's exposing inefficiencies of policy." The room erupted in applause. Phones discreetly recorded. Employees grinned, nodding. Collins stammered, That's not the point." The CEO cut in, voice sharp. "No, Ethan's right. We created a circus, and our clients are buying tickets." The laughter turned into cheers. The CEO's verdict. By noon, the CEO announced, "Effective immediately, the H-17 policy is suspended. We will return to standard break procedures. A full review of HR leadership will follow." The employees burst into applause, some even standing. Collins froze, her face pale. For the first time, she realized the tide had turned. Her rule, once her triumph, was now her coffin. The Whisper Network aftermath. By the afternoon, Slack exploded with memes. A gif of a collapsing Jenga tower captioned, "Policy H-17." A picture of a coffee cup labeled, "Ethan's weapon of choice." The phrase, "existential sigh," approved, trended across channels. Ethan said nothing. He didn't need to. He had obeyed, and obedience had done the work. Chapter 5. The Collapse of Collins. The morning after. Friday morning, the office was buzzing like a beehive. The energy felt different, lighter, freer. Employees moved between desks with grins. Slack threads exploded with memes of pizza slices and sighing emojis. The once dreaded policy was now a punchline. But in the HR wing, silence ruled. Desks were piled with half-processed H-17 forms, abandoned like artifacts of a failed empire. The interns had been reassigned to IT for temporary support. And Miss Collins, she hadn't been seen since the all-hands. The emergency meeting. At 11 a.m., Collins sat in the boardroom, facing the CEO, CFO, and head of operations. She looked smaller without her usual armor of confidence. The CFO slapped a thick stack of papers onto the table. 200 pages of absurd requests, all approved under your policy. Clients have laughed in our faces. Do you realize the reputational damage? Collins straightened her blazer, voice tight. The staff twisted the policy. It was supposed to promote accountability. The CEO's glare cut through her words. Accountability isn't about documenting sneezes. It's about results. You didn't see the warning signs because you were too busy defending your idea. For the first time, Collins had no comeback. The verdict. By 4 p.m., the official memo hit inboxes. Subject: HR Leadership Update. Effective immediately, Ms. Collins will transition out of her role as HR Director. Interim leadership will be announced shortly. The office erupted not with sadness, but with relief. Employees posted gifs of fireworks in Slack, and someone taped an H-17 form to the water cooler with the word "Denneed" scrawled in red marker. Ethan's quiet victory. At his desk, Ethan sipped coffee, scrolling through Slack reactions. Maya leaned over with a grin. You realize you just ended her career, right? Ethan shook his head. I didn't end it, her policy did. I just followed orders. Owen raised his mug in salute. To Ethan, the king of compliance. But Ethan only smirked. He didn't crave the crown. He just loved watching stupidity collapse under its own weight. The legacy of Form H-17. By Monday, the policy was already a legend. New hires whispered about the Great Form Flood of 2023. Employees used H-17 as shorthand for any bad idea. Another pointless meeting? That's an H-17. Server down again? Classic H-17. What was meant to be Collins' legacy had turned into a running joke, burned into company culture forever. And Ethan? He updated his personal creed. Never fight stupidity head-on. Just obey it. Stupidity exposes itself and sometimes takes its creator with it. Chapter 6. The Lesson. The new Monday. The following Monday felt lighter. Employees strolled in with coffees, laughing, relaxed. No more forms, no more printer jams, no more HR interns drowning in paperwork. On the whiteboard in the main hall, someone had written in bold, RIP Form H 172023-2023. Underneath, doodles of pizza slices, sneezing faces, and sad HR clerks filled the margins. The great policy experiment was officially dead. The CEO speaks. At the weekly stand-up, the CEO addressed the entire staff. We learned a hard lesson. Rules that make sense in theory can destroy us in practice. What matters isn't controlling every second, it's trusting you to deliver results. The applause was genuine this time. No sarcasm, just relief. Ethan's reflection. At his desk, Ethan sipped his coffee, watching the office hum with a new energy. Maya leaned over. Feels good, huh? We actually won. Ethan smirked. We didn't win, the policy lost. He opened his notebook and jotted a line. Malicious compliance doesn't break rules, it reveals them. For him, it wasn't rebellion, it wasn't sabotage, it was a mirror. And when the wrong rule looked into that mirror, it shattered. The twist. Weeks later, the CEO called Ethan into his office. I've been watching you. You saw the flaw before anyone else. You didn't fight it. You let it fail on its own. That's rare. Ethan stayed quiet, waiting. I'd like you to join a task force. Help us design policies that actually work. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Policies that won't collapse under compliance? The CEO chuckled. Exactly. The final creed. That night, Ethan updated his creed one last time. Never fight stupidity head-on. Just obey it. Stupidity exposes itself. And when leadership listens, compliance can turn disaster into progress. He closed the notebook, took a long sip of coffee, and smiled. Not a smirk this time, a real smile. Because sometimes malicious compliance wasn't just a weapon. Sometimes it was a teacher. Chapter 7. The True Ending. The Office Folklore. Weeks turned into months. The chaos of Form H-17 faded into legend, retold at lunches and after-work drinks. New hires heard whispers about the Great Form Flood and laughed at the absurdity. The phrase pulling an H-17 became office slang for blindly enforcing a stupid rule. It wasn't just a story anymore, it was part of the company's DNA. Collins' aftermath. Miss Collins was quietly transferred out of the company. The official memo said, pursuing new opportunities, but everyone knew. She became a cautionary tale. Whenever someone suggested a pointless procedure, someone else would mutter, "Careful, don't go full Collins." And everyone would nod. The cultural shift. The CEO, humbled by the fiasco, redefined leadership. Rules must serve people, not control them. Feedback mattered, even if it came in the form of sarcastic compliance. Trust built more productivity than surveillance ever could. Employees noticed the difference. They weren't treated like children anymore, but like adults trusted to deliver. Ethan's choice. For Ethan, it was never about revenge. It was about truth. Malicious compliance was his quiet rebellion, but also his way of showing flaws without shouting. One afternoon, the CEO approached him again. "You have a gift, Ethan. You saw through the nonsense. Ever thought about leading a team yourself?" Ethan smirked. "Maybe someday. But for now, I'm fine sipping my coffee." The final lesson. On the anniversary of Form H-17's demise, someone scribbled on the office whiteboard, "Malicious compliance doesn't burn the system down, it just holds up the mirror. Whether you laugh, learn, or collapse, that's up to the boss." The room fell quiet as people read it. Then, slowly, smiles spread. Because they all knew it was true. Ethan looked at the words, coffee in hand, and finally smiled, not a smirk, but a real, satisfied smile.